Hey, welcome to Talking Synths, episode number 86. We're back in New Braunfels, Texas. The last episode was in Los Angeles from the NAMM show with our buddy Dr. Mix. Dr. Mix, yeah. Crazy, kooky guy, real fun to be around with. Just as fun in person as he is on screen. So that was cool. We'll just go over some NAMM stuff real quick, just because.
Did you introduce yourself? Did you tell them who we are, where we're from?
No, I'm Sam.
I'm Carlos.
And we're from Syntaur. Syntaur.com is a website. We live to bring old synthesizers back to life. So if you have a broken key, lost knob, get us on the horn. And, call us up, go to the website, and we'll fix you right up.
Try the website first before you call.
Yeah. All right. So a little brief recap of NAMM. Well, actually, I don't have much NAMM stuff to recap because we spent the whole time interviewing people, and I saw a total of one keyboard, one product at the whole NAMM show. So, but the big news, heartbreaking news, is that Dave Smith passed away, and we interviewed some people and put out a tribute to that. It's up on our YouTube channel. Great guy. Felt so blessed to have met him and interviewed him just very recently, and then it was just heartbreaking and quite a surprise to hear that he passed away. We actually learned while we were driving to NAMM, so it was hard to believe, but lost another great one.
Yeah, and then and speaking on recent passing into the synth community, Darwin Gross.
Yeah,
that was another really. To me, the Darwin Gross one really kind of hit home, just because listening to so many of his podcasts, you kind of feel like you develop a personal relationship.
Yeah,
and talk about someone who has an amazing body of work. You know, there were times like when I interviewed Jared from Future Retro, you know, one thing I kind of did beforehand was I just binged a bunch of Darwin Gross, you know, art, music, and technology podcasts, just to kind of get the idea and the feel of what a good interview is. So, you know, right there, that's just one way that, you know, he affected me directly, you know, or influenced me.
Exactly.
You know, it's just crazy to see all these people it's kind of like they're dropping like flies.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah. I mean, hopefully it's no more than usual. I mean, I don't know that any of them has passed due to COVID or anything, so I don't know. It's just sad and hard to assimilate. Anyway, rest in peace, Dave. We're going to miss you, and Darwin. I did get to meet Tom Oberheim at the NAMM show. So yeah, I was reflecting back on, I've been at NAMM shows and seen Bob Moog, and was just too, you know, I wasn't going to walk up and say, "Hi, can I shake your hand?" And, you know, it's like, what's he going to want to say to me? What's he going to want to hear from me? And then now he's gone, and I can't do that. And then Dave Smith is gone, and I saw Tom Oberheim, and I thought, what am I waiting for? So, yeah, I went up and talked to him. We actually did want to interview him for the tribute we did, but with him and a number of other people that work very closely with Dave, they were just like, it's too soon. I don't think I can do it. And yeah, I totally understand. And the people that did do it, there were many instances of tears flowing afterward, and you know, it was hard. And, what else happened at NAMM? The one thing, Lucas and I went to a Nord party. That was kind of fun, and I got to actually shake hands and talk with the CEO of Nord from Sweden. So
nice.
that was kind of cool. And I liked doing that because Mary and I had just binge watched a TV show, I think it's on HBO Max, called Treme, and it's about New Orleans post-Katrina. And it's really well done, and it's very centered around the music scene in New Orleans, so there's lots of scenes of bands and music being played. And unless there was a real piano or a B3, you could bet 10 to 1 odds that the band was using a Nord keyboard. They were all over the place. Every band was using a Nord keyboard. It was really something, I thought. And I wanted to convey that to the CEO of Nord, that his stuff is everywhere. And yeah, they make great stuff. And so that was cool too. And were you going to say something?
Yeah, if you ever lose a Nord knob, it's probably one of our top 10 selling items.
Yeah.
I would think. Yeah, we sell the 1987 is the one, our SKU number that, I mean, we probably sell at least 5 a day. And then we send them everywhere, all over the world. Nord knobs.
Very popular item. And I did, speaking of Nord, want to bring up one little correction. A few episodes ago, we talked about the Nord Stage 3, and you said, we've been waiting on that keyboard for almost a year or whatever. And the podcast came out, the Nord rep was listening to it. He said, that doesn't sound right. So he pulled up the records, and it's like, no, we don't really have one on order, so the bad's on us. Not on Nord, so we thought we were waiting on one, but we were waiting on us to get our act together. So, apologies to Nord if you know, if there's any slight there, not intended. And yeah, they're a great company, and we really enjoy dealing with them. Any other NAMM or synth news to talk about?
The only interesting tidbit that I caught yesterday was seeing that Yamaha patented or filed for trademark on the ANX name, which is interesting. You know, the CS1X, the CS2X, kind of their whole range of virtual analog, which, you know, kind of came out around the time that Yamaha acquired Sequential. You know, so I do believe that Dave Smith kind of had his hand in some of that early virtual analog. It'd be interesting to see what the new thing that they're going to release is. I love that little, what is it, the reface, the CS, you know, and if they could just package that into a larger, maybe 49 note, 61 note synth, yeah, that'd be great.
Always cool stuff to look forward to. And well, that will transition us into the next phase of our podcast here. The Bass Station 2. I've started diving into this thing. It is not at all new. When did this thing come out?
About 10 years ago.
Yeah, and it's so cool. And I'm just discovering it. So, but the really cool thing is, it's so different from when it first came out. It's a total analog synth, and it's 2 oscillator with a sub oscillator. Kind of got the normal stuff, but with a few extra features. But the OS is on Flash or whatever inside. You can update the OS, and Nord keeps on updating it. Novation, sorry, I get those in.
That's so nice of Nord to update the Bass Station 2.
Well, yeah, I talked to the CEO of Nord and told him, y'all should make a Novation. No, they're affiliated companies because they're both distributed by the same company.
And just one thing, while it is all analog, you do have your choice of a digital filter if you so choose. You have, what is it, the 2-pole, the 4-pole, and then the 303 style, the emulation, which is a digital filter.
Acid filter, they call it. Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, kudos to Novation, because over the course of this 10-year history of this little guy, they've upgraded it to the point of, I mean, it'd make it worth buying if you didn't have one, just because the cool new features of it. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through this, and what I thought is, you know, a really good way to get familiar with this is just to start programming some sounds. And this little guy made me want to get back into sound design and making programs, and I've started making a patch bank for it, and it's been really cool. So I thought I'd share a few things that I really like about it. And one thing that drives me a little crazy is you got to switch for oscillator select 1 or 2, and you got to switch for LFO speed and delay. So though it's kind of a knob per function synthesizer, except for those. So it's not any big menu diving and all, except for those. You got to remember that. And numerous times I'll think, okay, I need to adjust the pitch of oscillator 1, and I'll start turning and nothing happens, and I realize, oh, I just detuned oscillator 2 because the switch is in the wrong place. So something to get used to, but a minor nuisance there. And then, so that's my con about this, the thing that bothers me, which leads me to what I really like about this, and this is going to sound crazy, but you can really dive deep into menus and do all kind of crazy stuff. So yeah, you have a function button, and then you hold that function button down and press a key once or press a key twice, and it's hard to remember this, or well, they're kind of laid out, but it's some stuff to remember, and it's some menu diving, and it's all the stuff that usually kind of drives me crazy, but it's so cool because here's this basic analog synth that does exactly what it ought to do, exactly what it's so intuitive from the front panel, and you feel like, yeah, I can do all kind of cool stuff with this. And then there's so much more that you can get to by doing that menu diving. And all the menu diving stuff is the esoteric kind of things that you're not going to need to get to live or whatever. It's not detuning your oscillator or sweeping the filter or something. So,
yeah, and just speaking of greats who have passed recently, I believe this was designed by Chris Hudgett. From Novation, previously of Akai. I believe he also worked a little bit on the Wasp, or maybe he designed the Wasp.
I think so.
So someone out there will have to correct me on that, but yeah, definitely someone who had a lasting impact in the synth community. The Summit and the Peak were kind of like his final hurrahs. So the Bass Station in itself carries some very great heritage and DNA, and I think a lot of that is really it's really evident once you start to dig into it. This was one of those instruments that I had for a very, very short period of time. I spent maybe 2 days with it, and I remember at first I kind of scrolled through some of these presets, and I was like, well, all right, it sounds good, but it's I don't know if it's necessarily my thing. It's got a lot of mid-range, maybe not a whole lot of bottom end. I don't know if I could really call it a bass station. And then I tucked it away. And then the next day I pulled it out and I started really, like you were saying, diving deep into some of those functions and just the wide palette of sounds that you could pull from it.
Yeah.
And it really goes to show, you can't really judge an instrument on the first couple of presets.
Yeah.
I know companies do a really good job to kind of make those first couple of presets really stand out. But the thing is that these are intimate instruments. It's how you express yourself. So the first 10 presets might sound great to you, but not to me.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was really amazed. One of my favorite options was just adding the skew to the LFO and kind of getting some of those, or slew, getting some of those non-traditional wave shapes for modulation.
Yeah. So that'll basically round off the corners of whatever your LFO wave shape is. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great little synth, and God, will we ever get to the point where we can stop talking about people that have passed away that are great? And, I hope so. Well, let's just play a few things. I thought it'd be fun to just kind of go through a few of the programs I'm doing and talk about them. That's just a big old fat beefy analog synth. Two oscillators that are pulse width modulating, so we got them sweeping around, and I remember doing this patch. The one thing I wished that I could do, as I say, the two oscillators that are pulse width modulated, I wish I could have sent LFO to one and LFO2 to the other, to where they're sweeping at different rates, and since I couldn't, since they're sweeping the same, if you sustain a note, you hear that wow, wow, wow. I mean, it's a great patch. I love the sound. But if you could use two different LFOs, you could have one cancel out where the other is, you could just put them at different rates and you wouldn't get that wow, wow, wow. But it's, big and beefy. And of course, this is the mini Moog type classic ladder filter. So yeah, I just made that one and thought, this thing sounds huge. Let's see, this is just a straight mini Moog kind of straight up kind of attacky bass sound. I don't have any memories of anything exotic about that patch. Kind of a Oberheim brass kind of sound. So it's not just a bass station. You can do kind of nice lead stuff. Okay, and now the Arpeggiator adds some coolness, because you have an arpeggiator and a sequencer that's like a step sequencer plus, and you can save that arpeggiator or that sequence as part of a program, and you can save where there are latches. So I used to have a Yamaha CS5, and I wanted to have a setup where I could have stuff going and play along with it, and this was like in the 1980 or something. And so the only way I could do that was do a drone patch on the CS5 and then use an LFO with a sawtooth to go down, 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 and then I'd kind of have a bass patch going. So that was my poor man's way of doing what this can do so cool now. So that's going to be, I'm looking forward to having this set up and being able to play something like that, and then play a string synth along with it and some other cool stuff. And so, yeah, that's kind of a sample and hold, working on the filter at a totally different frequency from the arpeggiator going. So,
and I like the fact that they included like different rhythms.
Yeah,
you know, you get a choice of 32 different rhythms, and sometimes I'll come in after hours and just kind of noodle about, and you know, I really like taking instruments and just seeing what direction I can push them in. So one of the things I like to do with the bass station is I would essentially just use it as a MIDI controller and use that sequencer and maybe, you know, hook it up to something that had chord memory and then arpeggiate the chord memory from the bass station, you know, just kind of trying to take it out of its element a little bit and seeing what new inspiration I could draw from that.
Yeah. And so the rhythms, you have 32 rhythms that you can select on the arpeggiator, and I can demonstrate them using this patch, but the lower ones are kind of the basic ones, and then as you get higher in number, they get kind of crazier.
Weirder.
So we'll switch to number 1 here. Now let's go back to that patch. Pretty basic there. And then I'll go real high. So you can see you go from really basic to something that I can't even describe. And it's different from a normal arpeggiator in that it's not just a real bop, 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 bop. It's
and you can select the octaves as well, correct? From the front panel? Does it have 1, 2, and 3?
You mean with this?
No, right here, this knob, as in the range, the little spread over the key bed.
Yeah,
I always love having that option just available from the front panel.
Yeah, so let's just let's go back to my basic one here.
Standing the range.
Yeah, so that's really cool. And all these things, I'm just getting my feet wet in and diving in and learning the basics. And what I know makes this cool is that it's drawing me in. It's
like, oh, what if I do this? What if I?
Yeah.
Okay, what if can I do this? Or what happens if I move this knob? The inclusion of the pre and post filter distortion was another feature that I really enjoyed.
I'm not a big distortion guy, so I
love cranking it.
I haven't done a lot with those yet,
Yeah.
but the one that really catches my eye is the oscillator filter mod. That you can use oscillator 2 to modulate the filter at audio frequencies, and you can get some crazy stuff that way. And that's another one where it just kind of goes to outer space, and so yeah, I'm not using it too much yet, but it's fun to explore. But I've gone through programs on this, and just going through what programs that it came with, and several times it made me stop and think, how did they do that? And then I'm turning knobs, and all right, it's making this pitch, but I've got the oscillators and the sub oscillator turned off, and you know, just crazy stuff like that, and it just really sucks me in. Okay, one of my favorite programs on the Juno 106 factory presets is it had kind of a sonar sound, and I wanted to duplicate that on this. Because anyone writing a song about submarines is going to need that. So, no, I just always thought it was such a cool sound because it was so haunting, and maybe it was because that was when I discovered, all right, the oscillators are turned off. How's the Juno making this sound? And it's the filter self-resonating. But it's not just the filter self-resonating. It has a little noise in there to make it do this. And so, let's see, I'll see, that's with the noise turned off. So you need something to kind of drive the self-oscillation of the filter. And it pitches across the keyboard. But it's also, you know, it's not an oscillator. You're using the tuning of the filter, and so it's, you know, it's not made to be as stable as an oscillator. So it's drifting around, and it's wiggly, and it's funky, and it's really cool. It's haunting. I love it. Let's see, what is this one?
Did you ever figure out that kick that you liked? Did you say there was a kick?
Yeah,
patch?
there was something in there that had such an attack to it, and I think it was done with the filter and just a real tight filter envelope. I got to explore that some more. I know we're getting low on time, but so with the Aphex mod, the 4.41 or 4.14 or whatever OS. So this one's updated to be like the Aphex, and again, that's a simple thing to do with Novation's software. It takes the sub oscillator and says, forget about tracking oscillator 1. Do whatever you want. So it's a third oscillator. So that's well, it's kind of not real obvious, but that's a 3 oscillator kind of mini Moogish bass patch. And then I went a little further to demonstrate the tuning of the oscillators, and this is sort of a techno little hit kind of thing. But so I'm playing a minor chord. There's 3 oscillators in there tuned to tonic, minor third, fifth. So it used to be a 2 oscillator synth. Now they sent an update and it's a 3 oscillator synth. So really cool feature. And then the big feature, of course, with the Aphex update is that you can, this is hard to explain, you can make an overlay that allows you to program each key differently on a patch. Patch what?
Patch flip. That's what they call it. You're flipping through patches on every note.
Yeah, kind of. They're basically built on the same basic patch, but in your overlay, then you can change whatever you want on each key. And so I've just started exploring that and was racing to finish my initial exploration before we did this today. But I thought, you know, a cool thing to try is I'm going to make some telephone sounds because they're easy to emulate. And the cool thing about synthesizers is you can make cool noises with them. Who would have guessed? a lot of telephone sounds are just two sine waves tuned at certain pitches. So what I did was looked up those pitches on Google, thanks Mr. Google, and programmed a few different telephone sounds on here, and then just saved them in the overlay to play on different notes. So I got a dial tone here, which, if you want to know, I wrote down the numbers. 440 hertz and 350 hertz sine wave mixed together. And then, okay, dial tone. The ringback sound, that's 440 plus 480 hertz mixed together. And then if you want to make another call, and it's busy, then that's 480 plus 620 hertz sine waves mixed together. So I always think that kind of stuff is cool, and you can so easily make those sounds on an analog synth with just sine waves. So it's a fun way to demonstrate the sounds, and it's a cool way to demonstrate the overlay, because I get these three different sounds on different keys, and who'd have thunk? I mean, this thing does such cool stuff. What's going to come out next?
The Syntaur version?
Could be. But yeah, it's a really cool synth, and I've had such fun exploring it, and it's just really drawing me in and making me want to do a lot of cool stuff on it. So that's why we're here with it today, and that's why I came in and said, we're doing Talking Synths, and it's going to be on the Novation Bass Station too, even though it's 10 years old. That's hard to believe. What other keyboards has been made for 10 years?
The Microkorg, probably.
Yeah. But
which I believe we also have here in the showroom.
Yeah.
Maybe the Blofeld.
But it's really hard to name.
To that level of consistency.
Yeah. So that's a remarkable achievement, and the way it's updatable, God, I can see it. 10 years from now, I'm still going to love it. So. Really cool. Hats off to Novation for such a cool product.
Definitely very easy to recommend as a great first synthesizer.
Yes.
For someone who wants to dip their toes in the analog world, wants something at an affordable price range, but doesn't want to compromise on features.
Yeah. And the price is what, $499, something like that?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I think it's $499. So $500, and here it is, yeah. And it's got 127 presets, so even if you don't do any programming, it's, you got a whole bunch of stuff. And they have software, component software that I'm still working on getting going, but you can load banks of sounds, you can save banks of sounds, you can do all sorts of cool stuff. And that kind of stuff, back in the day when I was sound designing, you had to pay big money to get a librarian program and hook all this stuff up and save your sounds that way. Now it's so easy, and that's, you put in your registration serial number, whatever, and there it is. You can hook it up through USB. So things have come a long way since old geezers like me started doing this.
And I think really, for as much as we've talked about it, I think we're still really only just scratching the surface. There's a lot of other things we can do.
We may be scratching again on a later episode. So anyway, I guess it's time to grab this second wheel here, and you know what that means. Thanks for joining in, and we'll
mod you later.